So we were discussing about different methods, like for example, the intuition detection systems, and also different attacks like denial of service. For example, here there's a client sends a request to the server. For example, it sends so many synchronization requests to the server, so that he is unable to provide the response to that particular request. That means it is a type of TCP SYN flooding attack, where there are so many connections. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there is as we were discussing, that there is a connection is established between client and the server, and the client send request to the server for that is synchronization request. So as we discussed, that if it's a type of SYN flooding attack, so where there's a user, it will send so many requests to the server, for example, and then it is unable for that for the server to respond that so many services are so many requests. So that comes in the category of the denial of service. So we have such type of attacks. Now, what are the different methods which can be applied for that situation? So if we have such type of attacks taking on the system, which limits the services of the particular system, or limits the access of the particular service on the system, so how we can protect the system from that? So for that, we need to have a particular intrusion detection system which can detect those intrusions on the systems which are applied on the system, and then uh, we can also have some methods which can detect such type of attacks on the system. Like for example, if we discuss different attacks, that how we can detect particular attacks. So we can detect the particular attacks on the basis of, for example, some address. For example, if particular address is actually if a user is having a particular address, so he is supposed to be an attacker, or he's applying some attacks on the system. So we need to protect the system from such type of attacker which is using that particular address, for example. So we have to define some configurations in the intrusion detection system, that for example, if a system is having a particular address or particular port number, for example, so he may damage to the system, or he may attack to the system. So we need to protect the system, or protect the, you can say, network from such type of a user, or such type of intruder, or such type of attacker which is using a particular address or particular port number. So either we use some methods like blocking particular address, or blocking particular port number, for example, so that a particular user having a particular address, or the port number cannot access the different services on our system. So we can apply different methods in this way to have a particular system which have a intrusion detection system installed, having a particular intrusion detection system, and this intrusion detection system can detect these such type of attacks using different methods like IP address scanning or port scanning or some other methods which can be applied to detect particular system or particular user which is an attacker and are taking to the system. So they are the different methods can be applied for that. For example, if there's a if you want to detect a particular uh, uh, user, for example, which is an intruder and which can uh, which can uh, which can apply different attacks on the system. Or, for example, we can also detect some sort of attack, for example, from particular data as well. For example, we can check the particular pattern of the data, for example, a particular sequence of the data, or, for example, um, uh, we can also categorize that, for example, this is the real data and that is actually that is a data which may be, if any data deviating from that from this type of data, then that would be, you can say, the data coming from the intruder or the taker. So in this way we can have different algorithms, and we can train those algorithms with that particular data set. For example, once we train that particular algorithm with that particular data set, once he's trained with that if any data is deviating from that data, or, for example, if any user behavior that is deviating from that behavior, from its original behavior, for example, then it is said to be, or then it is considered that is a type of attack which is actually called as a you can say that is a intruder is attacking on the system, and such type of attack is actually, we say that it is a type of attack which is detected on the basis of the anomaly. And if we detect that particular attack on a particular signature or particular pattern, then we say that we are detecting that particular attack on the basis of its particular signature or on the basis of its particular pattern. So in this way, we have different methods or different anomaly detection methods, which can be used to detect different attacks from the data, to detect different you can say attacks or different signatures which can be detected on the basis of these different types of attacks. And then we have different type of attacks, which are, for example, which we the examples of different attacks like can be evaluated, like, for example, that was evaluated using a dark on Andean data set. For example, we are using that data set and we train the system with that particular data set. And whenever any data is coming through the network, for example, if it is deviating from that data set which is trained into the system, so that means it would be considered that is an anomaly. So it's a system is working like that. There's a data is coming through some network, for example, and we have already trained our system with some data set, which is a standard data set, for example, or the data set which is generated from the network, for example, and we train the system with that data set. And whenever any data that is coming into the system and that is deviating from that data set, for example, that is deviating from that data, that means that would be considered that is an anomaly, or that is an intrusion. So, like in the same way as we are detecting some user, for example, it is exceeding its limitation to access particular system. So it, for example, it is some limitation to access the system, and it is exceeding to that limit. So that means it would be considered as a that is an intruder, that is an attacker. So in order to protect the user, in order to protect the system from such type of attacker, so we need to limit the access of that user. We need to limit the access. We need to control the access of that user which is accessing the system. So it is important thing to discuss here, that that user may be the authorized user, or that user may be the legitimate user. So it's a possibility that he is an authorized user and he is given the permission by the system, but he's exceeding its limitations. Maybe he's exceeding his limitations. So that is why we say that. So we have to analyze the activities which are uh, performed by that particular user. So if it is exceeding its permission given by the system, so then it would be considered as an intruder, for example. So in this way, we have different intrusion detection systems, which detect some intrusion on the basis of some data, or on the basis of the behavior of some user, for example, or on the basis of this some pattern that is used by some user, or on the basis of some pattern that is used by the data. So in this way, we have different intrusion detection systems like that. Like for example, there's a data that is given here. It consists of different values, for example, or different fields like time stamp, source address, port number, destination address, and different other variables, like for example, TCP connection flag and acknowledgement flag. So these are the different fields which are defined in the data. So we will analyze that data on the basis of these different fields. For example, if we have defined if we have decided to analyze the data on the basis of source address and the port number, for example. For example, we have listed number of source addresses, or number of IP addresses, and their corresponding port numbers, for example, that these number of IP addresses are the port numbers which should not be given access to the particular system. Then we define, and then we make a list of those you can say addresses and the port numbers, and then we define the rules for that. For example, if any data that is having that particular address, if any data that is coming in through the network and that is accessing the system, and that is any user that is accessing the system that has the particular address or the port number, and if it's actually in the list that is that should not be given the access, then we, for example, we can block that particular user, or we can limit the particular user to access particular services. So in this way, we have different methods which can be used to be applied on the system. Like for example, as we have already discussed about that, for example, there's a type of self-flooding attack where the client sends a request for the synchronization to other system, and it receives that request and sends the acknowledgement to the client, for example. So if there are so many requests are sent by the server, or the client to the server to respond the particular services, or to access the particular services from the server, then there's a possibility that the server has a particular limit to give the response to the different services, to the users or to the clients. So if it exceeds that limit, that then it's a possibility that the server cannot respond to the users or to the client. So we have to take care of different connections in this scenario. That, for example, that much limit is of the connections can be connected to the user or can be connected to the server. If it exceeds that limit, then we need to block that. We need to uh, uh, make rules like that, that we should make them in a waiting state, and then after we have given services to the users, then we assign permission to another user to access particular service for into the service. So in this way, we have different methods which can be applied on a system. So like in the same way, we have different methods which is based on some signature, which is based on some if it is a some based on some signature. So then that checks particular pattern of that data, and after checking that particular pattern of the data, so it will detect that the data, or it will detect the particular user which is deviating from its behavior, or it will check if any data that is coming into the system that is deviating from its behavior, that is trained to the system already. So so in this way, we can have different types of intrusion detection methods. So whenever we design, as we have discussed, that whenever we design a particular intrusion detection systems, we also has to take care of that it will produce less number of false positives. For example, if as we have discussed false positives here, for example, if there's an attack that is detected, but that is not a is actually a take, so that is called the false positive. And the false negative, for example, if there is an attack but it is not detected, that is an attack. So in this way, we have to reduce number of false positives and number of false negatives in the intuition detection system. So if we compare different intuition detection system, that is also very important parameter to compare different intuition detection systems. When we compare them, either that particular intuition detection or intuition is an attack or not. If so that is only depends on the different rules we define for an intrusion, for example. So in this way, we have different methods which can be used, like for example, hidden Markov model. That is a very important model, very useful model, which is used to analyze different data that is coming in the network. For example, if it is deviating from the original data, so we can also analyze the data using this model. For example, so uh, uh, we have some methods here which can be used. For example, here we have some data. For example, we train particular system with some data, or for example, we will analyze the behavior of some data, and then we make a data set from that, or for example, we train the system from that. And then if any data, or if any user that is deviating from that type of method, or that is deviating from that type of, you can say, function, that is actually considered as an intruder. So in this way, we have a supervised type of intrusion detection method. We train the model with a supervised method, where we have data set already in the system, and then we train the data set with that. Or for example, we have some unsupervised methods, like we train the data set with the data that is coming into the system, and we train with that. And then after training the with the model with that, then we set different rules, and on the basis of that, we will also detect that either that particular intruder is an attack or not. So that is also uh, having the different parameters which should be considered. For example, we need to have a high accuracy for that particular model. For example, that should produce less number of false positives, So in this way, we can use this model as well. And we have other model, for example, that is uh, a double Gaussian model that can be also used to analyze the behavior of the particular data. So we have different models here. So they are categorized in a supervised model and unsupervised. So in the supervised models, we have different data sets, and they train the system with a particular data set. And whenever any data is coming, so if it's deviating from that data, that is considered that is actually an anomaly, or that is considered an intrusion. And another way, we will train the model with the data coming, and we train the model, and then after training the model, whenever any data which is coming and that is deviating from that trained data set, so that means it will be considered as an intrusion or as an attack into the system. So we have different features of uh, a double Gaussian model. Like for example, it is simply and easy to understand, and we can detect different methods or different intuitions for us as compared to some other methods. So there's some advantage of this model, and say there's some also some disadvantage. Like for example, sequence of different characters. So we need to have a proper sequence of the particular characters, so that we can detect particular intuition for that particular attack. So we will analyze different things whenever we design a particular model, uh, either that is a supervised model or that is an unsupervised model. So we will evaluate different features here. So we will evaluate that either particular intuition detection system is producing less number of false positives and false negatives, or for example, it is giving response at particular rate. For example, it has a particular accuracy. For example, it provides more accuracy or less accuracy. So in this way, we have different types of models which can be used for the intrusion detection system. So we can detect a particular intrusion, we can detect a particular attack by using these different models. So I'll also give you an assignment of uh, that consists of 40 marks to design a uh, particular system which can detect different intrusions, which will be based on the particular rules, for example. And you will define these different rules using a you can say intrusion detection system like SYNOD, for example. So in this assignment, you will use the SYNOD. It is an open source intrusion detection system. So you can use that intrusion detection system. So the function of this is that it works like that. You will define different rules on that intrusion detection system, and these rules may be defining that, for example, that particular address or particular port number should not be given access to the system. For example, if any data is coming having that particular format, for example, if it is considered as an intrusion or if it is considered as an attack, for example, so you will block that particular data, or for example, you will limit that particular data to have an access to the system. So in this way, for example, there could be the different scenarios you can use. For example, here in this assignment, for example, you have a server that is connected to the network, for example, public network or internet, for example. And for example, there are the different logs are generated when a server is connected to the internet. So whenever, for example, any intruder is coming, so you will be notified by an email or some alert, for example, some notification that an intruder is uh, has been detected by the system, or the attack has been launched by an attacker on the system. So in this way, you can have such scenario, and uh, you need to you need to alert, or you need to notify to the user that particular attack has been launched into the system. So you will use this, or you will make this such type of assignment using an open source application like Synod. And further, you can also do some other things, like, for example, if an attack has been detected, for example, that how many times an attacker has attacked to the system, how many hours he has used to attack the system, or how many days he attacks to the system. So these are the different parameters you will define whenever you will design such type of intrusion detection system. So I'll also send you the slide about that also contains the description about that, about the assignment. So you will have to make that assignment, and then before the exam, I will you have to collect the assignment before the exam, and then you can email that assignment on my email as well. So I'll share the slides with you that contains about this assignment, and some other details about the intrusion detection system. So if you have any question up to now, then you can ask.
Sir, last date for this assignment?
You can submit this before the exams, and you can also you can email me. Okay. So you can email the assignment using this. This is my email ID.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, what about the lectures which you have recorded during the class, when you are going to upload, or when you are
Yes.
going to
Uh,
update your profile on LMS?
yes, I will update that very soon. So until now, I have been providing the lectures to you as well. Whenever I teach you anything, so I also provide you that, and also provide you some details about the assignments, and I also update the recorded lectures as well, and also the lectures on LMS. Okay.
Yeah, sir, it's okay. But before that, please share with us all lecture slides, only slides.
So I've already given you the lectures as well, our slides to you. Uh, you can have look at that, and then I also upload as well. Okay.
Okay, sir, thank you.
So that's all about
Okay,
today's
sir.
lecture. So if you have any question regarding the assignment or some topics in the course, then you can also discuss with me in the next lecture.
सर असाइनमेंट ग्रुप में जमा करवानी है इंडिविजुअल?
Individual. Okay.